Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. The night my wife told me to go find someone who entertains you, she was folding laundry in absolute silence. Not tense silence, just the kind that feels rehearsed. The kind that makes you realize this isn't a bad day. It's the new normal. She didn't scream, didn't throw anything, just neatly folded my favorite hoodie, tossed it on the couch, and said without looking at me, "I'm not here to entertain you. Go find someone who is not even sarcastic. Just done." I stared at her, not like in the movies where the guy says something cool. I had nothing. I was holding the TV remote, hovering over a movie she once said she loved. I had paused it to ask if she wanted tea. Tea. That was my crime. Apparently, she walked away. The laundry kept spinning in the machine like it didn't just witness the collapse of a marriage. But here's the wild thing. That line, that cold throwaway line, it became the spark. Not in a motivational poster way, not in a go-build-yourself way. No, in a what the hell has my life become kind of way. I started paying attention to little things like how she always left her phone face down, even when it buzzed 3 times during dinner. Like how she suddenly hated pizza after 10 years of devouring it on movie nights. Like how she had a new scent, musky, expensive, not something I'd ever smelled on her before. I knew something was off, but I didn't want to admit it because if I did, if I acknowledged it, then I'd have to do something. And honestly, I was tired. Tired of the guessing. Tired of trying to be cheerful around a woman who sighed every time I opened my mouth. So I waited and I watched. And one Thursday night, I followed her. She told me she was going to her book club. That's what she called it. "The girls and I are reading something raw and honest this week," she said. I smiled and nodded like the doormat I had become. But this time, I followed 20 minutes later. Lights off, engine quiet, no book club. Instead, I saw her car parked outside a downtown apartment complex I didn't recognize. A man came out, tall, broad, confident, the kind of guy who doesn't ask if you want tea. He tells you what you're drinking. She opened her arms before he reached her. They didn't kiss. They collided. And I just sat there in my car watching my wife disappear behind someone else's door like she belonged there, like I never existed. That was the moment something inside me cracked. But it wasn't rage. Not yet. It was shame. And it was only the beginning. I didn't drive home right away. I just sat in my car, engine off, fingers clenched so tightly around the steering wheel that my knuckles turned white. The city moved around me. Cars, lights, people living their lives. But I was stuck in this frozen loop, staring at that building door she had disappeared behind. My wife, the woman who once cried during Pixar movies, the woman who made me homemade soup when I had the flu. Now she was in someone else's apartment on a weeknight with no guilt, no shame, no hesitation. She had called me needy for asking if she wanted tea, but she had no problem being wrapped in someone else's arms when I was home waiting for her with dinner going cold. I stayed outside for 2 hours. I wish I could say I left out of strength or self-respect, but the truth, I had to pee, and I didn't want to humiliate myself by using a bottle in my own damn car. When I got home, the place felt alien. Everything in our condo was handpicked by her. Every candle, every framed photo, every throw pillow on the couch. My life had been slowly overwritten by someone else's preferences, and I hadn't even noticed until that night. It wasn't my home. It was a showroom where I played the role of husband number 1. And now it was clear she was already casting husband number 2. I didn't confront her, not yet. She came home around midnight, makeup smudged just slightly, her hair tied up in a way I hadn't seen in years. She didn't even act surprised to see me awake on the couch, just mumbled something about the book club running late. I nodded. She didn't hug me, didn't kiss me, just walked past like I was a lamp she forgot to turn off. The next morning, I called in sick for work, which was a lie. I wasn't sick, just broken. I spent the day thinking, not about revenge, not yet, but about patterns, about how long she'd been treating me like a background character in my own life. And the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. She didn't just fall out of love. She decided I wasn't worth loving anymore. And instead of telling me, she let me rot. Later that evening, I did something pathetic. I made dinner, steak, her favorite, and tried to pretend nothing had changed. I just wanted to feel normal for one night. She came in, saw the table, and rolled her eyes like it was an inconvenience. "I already ate," she said coldly, pulling her phone from her purse. "And don't make this a thing, Daryl. You always make everything a thing." I stood there holding her plate in my hands, feeling the heat from the food and the cold from her words. She didn't even glance at it. That's when it hit me. She was daring me to break, daring me to cry or yell or beg. But I wouldn't give her that. Not yet. Instead, I smiled and said, "Next time, let me know. I don't want to waste a good steak." She looked surprised. For the first time in months, she blinked. "Whatever," she muttered, walking away. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. And what she didn't realize, not yet, was that I had started documenting everything. Every late night, every lie, every excuse. Because when I leave, I won't just be gone. I'll take everything she didn't realize she depended on. And the look on her face when that happens, that'll be the first time in years she actually looks at me. I've never been the clever type. I was the kind of guy who forgot birthdays, spilled coffee on important papers, and apologized for things I didn't even do. But in the days after Maura walked out that door and into his arms, something rewired in me. I didn't become cold or angry. No. I became observant, quietly dangerous, a version of myself she never expected to show up. I bought a cheap black notebook from the corner store. Nothing special, no brand, no barcode, just blank pages and a spine begging for purpose. That notebook became my secret little rebellion. Each night, while she thought I was asleep, I'd sit in the kitchen and write times, places, phrases she said that didn't add up. The name Craig. I didn't know who he was yet, but she slipped up one night and mumbled it in her sleep. Pages filled quickly. I noted when she took longer showers. When she wore perfume on days, she said she was just running errands. I even wrote down the moment she rejected my attempt to kiss her in the morning and muttered under her breath, "Don't be weird, Daryl." But I wasn't weird. I was a husband trying to reach for something already gone. She started keeping her phone on her at all times, even in the bathroom. She used to leave it plugged in by the bed while we watched shows together. Now, if I so much as walked past her purse, she pulled it close like it was a life raft. So I got smarter. I never touched her phone. I didn't need to. She got careless in other ways. One night, she tossed a gym bag onto the floor after coming home late. I waited until she went to shower, then quietly unzipped it. Inside, a receipt from an Italian place 30 minutes away. 2 forks, 1 entree, 1 hotel keycard, the kind that slides into a door and says everything you don't want to hear out loud. I copied the address down. Didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I started staging my own exits. I moved a few important documents out of the house, changed the password on my personal bank account, something she hadn't looked at in months. I even started sleeping in the guest room with the excuse of needing more space. She didn't argue, didn't ask questions, just nodded and kept texting. She thought I was fading, but really, I was detaching. I was rehearsing my absence, practicing what it would feel like to not answer when she called my name. Spoiler, she hadn't said my name in 3 weeks. Then came the Friday night that changed everything. She got dressed up, heels, lipstick, earrings I didn't recognize. "Girls' night," she said, grabbing her bag and barely glancing at me. I waited 5 minutes after she left, then grabbed the spare car keys and followed her from 2 cars back. I didn't even know if I had the nerve to see it through. My stomach twisted the whole time, but I had to know. I needed to see her choose him over me. Not just in theory, but in reality. She pulled into a small boutique hotel, not a chain. The kind of place where you don't ask questions at the front desk. I parked down the street, heart hammering. Through the glass door, I saw her hug a man with dark hair and a sharp coat. They didn't kiss. Not right away. He touched her cheek gently. She laughed in a way I hadn't heard in over a year. Then he leaned down, whispered something, and they both disappeared behind the elevator doors. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there with that same notebook in my lap, flipping to a blank page and wrote, Friday 10:42 p.m., hotel on 8th and Alder. He touched her face. She smiled like she loved it. I closed the book slowly. That was the night I stopped being her husband and started being the man who'd take back his dignity piece by brutal piece. The following morning, Maura came home at 6:13 a.m. I watched the time change on the stove clock while sitting at the kitchen table in the dark. I had been there all night, but I made sure to shuffle my feet and pretend I had just woken up. She walked through the door barefoot, heels in her hand, her mascara slightly smudged. The woman who once gasped in horror if I wore mismatched socks now stood before me looking like a stranger returning from a life she didn't want me to know about. She blinked when she saw me. Not guilt, not surprise, just mild inconvenience, like she'd forgotten to take the trash out and now had to deal with it. "You're up early," she mumbled. I didn't answer right away. I wanted to see what face she'd wear. She poured herself some orange juice, still in the same dress from the night before, and leaned against the counter like nothing was off. I asked, "Good night with the girls." And she didn't flinch, just nodded and said, "We stayed up talking about everything and nothing. I wonder if everything and nothing included the name of the man who kissed her forehead in the hotel lobby." Then came the mistake, the one she'd regret more than she realized. As she walked past me to go shower, she leaned in and kissed the top of my head. It wasn't affectionate. It wasn't warm. It was automatic, like muscle memory kicking in from when she still loved me. I froze, my breath locked inside my chest. The smell of that musky cologne was still on her skin. He had touched her neck. I could tell. I knew the perfume she wore, and I knew what wasn't hers. She realized it too. She stopped mid-step, hesitated, and then kept walking upstairs without saying another word. I sat there with my coffee going cold, knowing she didn't kiss me because she wanted to. She kissed me because for a split second, she forgot which man she had just woken up next to. Later that day, I finally printed out everything. Photos of her car outside the hotel, a copy of the receipt from the restaurant I pulled from her purse weeks ago. I even managed to snap a blurry shot of her and the mystery man from across the street the night before. Not clear, but clear enough. I put it all in a plain folder and sealed it in a manila envelope. Not for her. Not yet. I had someone else in mind. I took the day off work and did something I never imagined I'd do. I drove to the hotel. I didn't care if she saw my car there. I needed to know who he was. Not because I wanted to fight him, I wouldn't win, but because I wanted to understand who had taken my wife and convinced her I was something disposable. I walked into the lobby and approached the front desk. I expected to chicken out, but I didn't. I smiled and said, "Hi, I think I dropped something here last night. I met a friend here, but forgot his room number." The receptionist hesitated. "I think it was under the name Craig," I added, testing the name I'd heard her mumble in her sleep. To my surprise, she nodded. "Yes, Mr. Remington. Room 304. I thanked her and walked outside. I didn't go up. I didn't need to. I had the final puzzle piece. Craig Remington. I didn't know who he was, not yet. But the name gave me leverage, gave me something real to work with. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel powerless. I felt dangerous. And that's when I knew I wasn't going to confront Maura with yelling or tears. I was going to dismantle the world she built behind my back slowly, methodically, and on my terms, one name at a time. Craig Remington. That name lived in my head for days like a mosquito. You can't sweat. It buzzed constantly. I didn't know what he did, where he came from, or how long he'd been part of Moa's life. But what I did know painfully was that he knew her laugh, her perfume, her bedtime routine, the way her voice sounds in the dark. All the things I used to hold like fragile gifts were now his. I didn't confront her that week, not yet. Instead, I did something that felt wildly out of character. I called out sick again. 2 days in a row. I told my boss I was dealing with a family emergency. And technically, I was the slow and silent death of my family. I sat on my laptop digging. I searched Craig Remington on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on company databases. Nothing came up at first. Too many results. But then I narrowed it. Boutique hotel near Alder Street. Filtered by staff, then filtered again by recent tags. Mora used on social media. Dumb little hashtags like eating escape and finally relaxing. She wasn't even subtle. That's when I found him. Craig Remington, guest experience manager. Fancy title for a man who dismantled my marriage with 5-star linen and a minibar. I stared at his photo for a long time. Square jaw, confident smile, a guy who looks like he's never cried in a car or apologized for needing affection. The opposite of me in every way. I wasn't even angry, just exhausted, like someone handed me a test I had already failed before it began. I printed out everything I could find. His full name, employment record, a screenshot of him standing behind the hotel front desk from their official website, and I added it all to the manila envelope. Then I waited. The next evening, Mora asked me if I could pick up dry cleaning on my way back from work. I said, sure. Smiled, asked her if she wanted dinner from that Indian place she used to love. She nodded like we were some functional couple, like she hadn't been slipping away from me in chunks. What she didn't know was that I had already made an appointment with a lawyer. Not for revenge. Not yet. For protection. Because here's the thing. When a person shows you they're willing to lie to your face every day, you stop trusting anything. Joint accounts. I checked them all intact for now, but I wasn't going to wait until she drained them. I transferred my share to a new account in my name only, one she couldn't touch. I froze the credit card she used for girls' nights. She didn't notice yet. That would come later. The most humiliating part, I still wanted her to stop. Deep down, I wished she'd cry and confess and tell me she made a mistake. That it was a phase. That she remembered who I was and wanted to come back. But Mora didn't come back. She came home late again that night. Not even an excuse this time. Just walked in, tossed her heels at the door and said, "I'm too tired to talk." And maybe she was. Or maybe she was just too tired of pretending to love the man who still bent over backwards for a single drop of her attention. But something was shifting because the next morning when she went to use the joint credit card and it got declined, she called me at work. Her voice wasn't angry, it was confused. Did something happen to the card? I paused, then said, "Yeah, I'm not here to entertain you anymore. Find someone who will." Silence. For the first time in months, Mora didn't know what to say. And for the first time in my life, I did. I thought I'd seen it all. I thought the worst was behind me after I traced her lies, froze the accounts, and watched her step into another man's world like she never promised me forever. But nothing hit harder than what happened that Saturday afternoon. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't spying. I was just walking into the grocery store like a normal man trying to keep his last pieces of dignity while buying eggs and frozen waffles. But then I saw her Mora in the parking lot laughing. Not the fake dismissive laugh she gave me when I tried to tell her a joke. Not the eye-roll laced chuckle she offered when I reminded her of our anniversary last month. No, this laugh was warm, loud, real, and it wasn't mine anymore. She was sitting on a bench outside the store waiting for someone. Her phone in one hand, an iced coffee in the other, wearing that sundress she once told me she'd only wear on special days. I hadn't seen it in over a year. I thought maybe she gave it away. Then Craig walked out. I recognized him instantly from the hotel staff page. He handed her a small paper bag, kissed her on the cheek, and sat down beside her. They looked so casual, like a couple who had been together for years. Like this wasn't new or exciting or secret anymore. This was their routine, their Saturday, their normal. I ducked behind a parked van and just watched them. Not for long, maybe 2 minutes. But that was enough to break something permanent inside me. I wasn't mad that she had moved on. I was mad that she didn't even have the decency to pretend she hadn't. When I got home, I sat on the edge of the bed and just stared at my shoes. I couldn't feel anything. I was empty. I kept thinking. She never looked at me that way, not even in our best years. Or maybe she did, and I was too busy believing we were happy. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't say a word. She came home 2 hours later with a plastic bag of groceries and said, "You forgot the almond milk." I smiled, nodded, said, "Sorry, I'll get it tomorrow." She had no idea I saw her. But the next day, I mailed the envelope. Not to her, to Craig. It included the photo of her and me on our wedding day, smiling like idiots, a copy of our marriage certificate, proof of our shared mortgage, and a letter handwritten that simply said, "I'm not sure if she told you she's still married. Just thought you should know before you start planning matching bathrows." I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. He would know exactly who it came from. And I wasn't done yet because while she was busy laughing in the sun, I was finally learning how to disappear in the dark. 3 days passed. I didn't hear anything. No angry texts. No. How could you? Maura was her usual distant self. Too polite to be questioned. Too cold to be loved. She moved around the house like we were co-workers with separate lunch breaks. I kept wondering if the envelope had arrived, if he opened it, if he read the letter and looked at her differently. I wasn't hoping for chaos. I wasn't hoping for a fight. I just wanted one small crack in the fantasy she built, something real enough to remind her I still existed. Then on Thursday evening, my phone rang. An unknown number. Normally, I don't answer, but I did. Maybe I already knew who it was. The voice on the other end was calm, steady, but unmistakably male. Daryl. That one word made my blood go cold. My name from him. "I assume you sent the envelope." He said I didn't reply. I waited. He sighed. "I didn't know. She told me you were divorced, that you were living with a friend in Oregon, that you were, and I quote, out of the picture." Still, I said nothing. I wanted him to keep talking. "She lied to both of us," he said. "But you already knew that." And then, in a tone that surprised me with its sincerity, he added, "I'm sorry, man. That shook me more than anything Maura had ever said in the past 6 months. Her affair partner, the man who stole my place, was apologizing to me. Not sarcastically, not mockingly, just humanly." I hung up without saying a word. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't trust myself to speak without falling apart. That night, Maura was in the kitchen scrolling through her phone. She looked annoyed, like something wasn't going to plan. She didn't talk to me. She just said she was going to bed early. But I knew what she was really doing. Waiting for him to text, wondering why he hadn't. That night, for the first time in what felt like forever, she didn't sleep peacefully. She kept turning, got up twice, checked her phone in the hallway. Her restlessness was louder than any confession, and I enjoyed every second of it. The next morning, I left early for work, but I didn't go to the office. I went to the courthouse, filed paperwork, real paperwork, no threats, no dramatic confrontations, just my name, my signature, and a quiet filing fee that tasted like justice. I didn't need her permission. Not anymore. I left the papers with a process server. Maura would be served officially within a few days. I even paid extra to ensure she'd get them while at home, just to watch her world pause mid-scroll. But before I left the courthouse, I did one last thing. I updated my emergency contact, removed her name, and that's when it really hit me. She wasn't just cheating on me with another man. She was cheating on life with me. She never planned to rebuild this marriage. She planned to ghost me in real time while still sleeping in the bed I paid for, eating from the fridge I stocked, and using the silence I gave her as fuel for more betrayal. Well, the silence was ending, and the sound of consequences was just getting started. The day Maura got served the divorce papers, I was in the living room pretending to watch a documentary about hummingbirds. I heard the knock at the door, heard her footsteps, then the long silence after the envelope changed hands. She didn't scream, didn't chase me into the kitchen. She just stood there in the hallway holding those papers like they were instructions to a future she hadn't planned for. When she finally came into the room, her face was pale. She didn't speak right away. She just stared at me. "You're really doing this?" she asked. I looked her in the eyes. The same eyes that once searched mine for answers, for comfort, for love. I already did. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. But for the first time in months, she looked lost. Like the version of her who thought she was in control had finally realized the house of cards was falling, and she was underneath it. I stood up, grabbed my small overnight bag, and headed for the door. I had already moved most of my things days earlier while she was working late. I had a place lined up, nothing fancy, just quiet and mine. As I stepped outside, she called my name, that same voice she used to use when she was worried I'd forget my lunch or miss my flight. "Darl," she said. I turned just slightly. "I didn't think you'd actually leave." I smiled, not out of spite, but out of peace. "You told me to find someone who entertains me," I said. Turns out I did. Me. I closed the door behind me and walked to my car without looking back. No shouting, no tears, just sunlight on my face and a future that for the first time in years didn't feel like a trap. Weeks later, I started laughing again. Real laughing. I joined a hiking group. I adopted a dog. I finally stopped apologizing for being soft, quiet, awkward. There was nothing wrong with how I loved, only with who I gave it to. Maura texted once. Just one word. Sorry. I didn't reply, not because I was bitter, but because her apology couldn't glue back a mirror she spent years shattering. I'm not here to entertain anyone anymore. I'm here to live. And if you're still reading this, maybe you're sitting in silence wondering when you'll feel seen again. Trust me, you will. And when you do, don't let anyone dim it ever again. Thanks for being here on the Reddit Confessions channel. Now it's your turn. What moment in history made you believe in second chances? Drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear something that gave you hope. And don't forget, sometimes the best thing someone can say to you is, "I don't deserve you," because they're finally